Welcome to episode 4 of the CP Performance Podcast. Today's guest is Deanna Cooper. She's a defender from Chelsea Women's FC and an ex-England Academies cricket player. Before we kick everything off, I just need to let you know that we used a new piece of software to record this, and so in the transition of files from one piece of software to another there was a little bit of crossover, so at the end me and Deanna talk at the same time, and also I had to edit in one of the questions towards the end and you may notice it. But before we get started, just a quick message from our sponsor. Play is a new smart football tracker designed to utilise GPS technology and give you personalised sports science advice. For more information, go to playersmartcoach.com. And to be in for a chance to win one of the Player Smart Football Trackers, join our mailing list and follow us on social media at CP Perform UK. Hello Deanna, welcome to this episode of this podcast. So can you just give me a brief introduction about, who you are, what you do, and, a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, of course. I'm Deanna Cooper and I play for Chelsea. I've been at Chelsea for nearly 3 years now, and I'm a professional footballer. And yeah, I've been professional for those 3 years. Before that, I was an amateur footballer and played a bit of cricket as well in that time.
Awesome. So can you just expand a little bit about what your journey through the amateur to the professional game was like, and any sort of lessons you learned from playing high-level cricket, because you played for England, right?
Yeah, I played for Academy in cricket. But if you start with football, I was an amateur football from the age of 10 to the age of 23, playing for a couple of different clubs that had very different setups. So the likes of Gillingham, we used to train just twice a week for football. And then when I moved to Brighton, we'd train 3 times a week, which obviously meant, because we only had a few hours together, it was all my training was football based, and we didn't really do anything other than football based stuff. That journey was what led me to becoming a professional footballer, which I was very lucky to get signed by Chelsea after they saw me playing a game against them, which was great. And yeah, that transition from amateur football to professional football was quite a difficult one for me personally. The football side of things was the easier side of things. It was more the physicality of becoming a full-time footballer, which it took me a long time to get used to, and probably 3 years later I'm probably only just about starting to get used to being a full-time footballer, which sounds crazy, but at the time it was quite difficult when I first started at Chelsea. Just the change of routine from training 3 times a week to training every day took a while for my body to get used to it. And yeah, it's been a learning curve throughout the last 3 years as to what life as a professional footballer is actually like.
Okay, that's cool. You're clearly enjoying yourself now. You obviously have a passion and love for football, otherwise you wouldn't have kept doing it. Was there anything while you was an amateur player that challenged you, that tested you and made you ever think that I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to make it?
Well, football was really my second sport for most of my life, to be honest. Obviously, cricket was my main focus, and then football kind of came second to that until I was around 21 years old. So when I was playing football as an amateur, it was quite difficult to balance the two. Because cricket was my focus, football kind of took a sidestep. With cricket, it was my main focus, really, so I just kind of took that on, and then football was more of a hobby. Most of my football career was a hobby, so yeah, it just kind of flew by, really, the amateur side of my football career, because it was something I did more for the love of it, more than what I wanted to actually be serious in it. That was always my cricket until I got injured, and then football took over.
Okay, that's good to know. So your cricket career was stopped short because of an injury, which led you down a slightly different path, which is into professional football. You clearly, you've said several times, and in conversations me and you have had in the past, is that you play because you love it, which is amazing. Whilst being a professional, what challenges have you had to overcome to push yourself to new levels and standards, and to try and get the most out of yourself?
When I first joined Chelsea, obviously I wasn't really expected to kind of get in the team. I was kind of joined as like a last minute thing. I went in on trial and they was like, look, we'll take you on, but don't really expect to play. You're probably going to go out on loan and all this kind of thing. And then we got a few injuries within the team, which meant that they kind of had to play me because they had no one else. and I ended up playing. And during the spring series, I had a really, really good spring series. But obviously, my body was still getting used to training full time, which was something that I had to overcome. And the staff at Chelsea were brilliant with that. They get me treatments and stuff like that to try and help with me progressing from amateur to full time. And then at the end of the spring series, it was all looking really positive. Everything was going really well. Obviously, I'd had a really good series and it was great. Everything was absolutely buzzing. And then when I came back from pre-season, probably the biggest thing I've ever had to overcome in my life was the third day of pre-season. We played in a friendly against boys team and I tore my ACL. So obviously as a female footballer, that's a major injury. At the time, I'm pretty sure I didn't really realise what it was going to take to get back from that injury. But yeah, it's taught me a lot of lessons and I've learned a lot about myself and how I work as a person with regards to my football and how different types of training have helped me along the way to get through that period. I've had to learn new things with regards to gym work, with regards to training, with regards to playing football to enable me to get back to the player that I was before the injury. And that's probably been the biggest thing that I've ever had to overcome. As I say, it's taken about 2 years. It will be 2 years in August from when I had the injury, and probably only really the last month or so I've actually felt like I'm back to where I was before. So that's been a really long journey, but there's a lot of stuff that happened along the way that has enabled me to get to where I am with regards to my performance on the football pitch.
A difficult, obviously, situation to be put into, and it's a nice challenge for me as a member of staff to work with a player when they're injured. It's not nice for the player, of course. It's horrific. Some people take it really, really badly. And I feel like being fortunate enough to work with you during that phase, I feel like you grabbed every opportunity with two hands and, you seized the moment and you actually went for it. You didn't mess around. And just that characteristic and the way you do that, it reminded me of the first time I ever saw you play. The game you alluded to when you beat Chelsea. Can you just expand on that and the feeling of that day?
Yeah, of course. So before the game, as soon as we found out we had Chelsea in the quarterfinal of the Continental Cup, I was playing for London Bees at the time, and the last 3 times that Chelsea had played London Bees, the scoreline had been in double figures. So when we found out we'd drawn them in the quarterfinal, everyone was a bit like, oh, here we go again, kind of thing. But during the build up to the game, there was a lot of conversation around the London Bees camp because we'd been playing really well and we'd won a few games and we had a little bit of confidence behind us, and we kind of said before the game that we wanted to just give the best account of ourselves that we could possibly give, and that there was no pressure on us. Like, everyone expected us to lose. Like, there's no way a team like Chelsea should be losing to a team like London Bees. But throughout the game, it was a crazy game. So the score after full time was 2-2. And Chelsea managed to score in the 90th minute to equalise, which was devastating for us because we was on our last legs and we'd run our socks off of that game. And it went to extra time and we was all like, blimey, how are we going to get through this? And they'd just brought on 3 top players that didn't start the game. And when you see them players come on and you're on your last legs and you're going to extra time now and you've got to play another half an hour and try and keep them out was crazy. And then we conceded in the first 5 minutes of extra time. We was like, oh, here we go, this is it. And we kind of thought it was over, but we stuck with it. And luckily, I managed to get the equalising goal in the last minute of extra time, which took us to penalties, which was an unbelievable feeling. And throughout the game, I had this feeling that I just wanted to impress. I wanted to show people what I could do against a top club. And that was my aim. And luckily I had a good game, went to penalties and we ended up winning. And it got put everywhere. And it was the first time I'd really had any feedback on like social media and stuff about my performance, and felt really good. And then after that, it kind of all just rolled into one. And after I sent an email out asking for some trials at some top clubs, Chelsea was one of the only teams to reply, and luckily they invited me in for a trial. It started off as a 2-day trial, ended up being a 2-week trial, and then luckily they offered me a contract, which was, for me at that time, I was working in a school, so it was the most incredible thing to realise that I was going to be a full-time professional footballer, which was kind of a dream from when I stopped playing cricket. So that's how it turned out that day.
No, that's amazing. That's an incredible story. It's pushing boundaries, achieving things that didn't think you could achieve, going from a lower level to the most elite. I remember standing with one of the skills coaches and watching your first day of your trial, and the first thing I said was, bloody hell, she's quick. That was just one of the things I picked up on straight away within the first few minutes up in the arena. and then we put you in front of some of the best players in the world, and you held your own without any shadow of a doubt. We were like, wow, let's keep this going, and you opened our eyes definitely to a lot of sort of missed talent, because there are so many young female footballers out there that don't do what you did. I'm not talking about like having to constantly prove themselves on the field, like taking that chance and sending out an email to ask for an opportunity. That's incredible, that takes some balls to do. And obviously I would never have got the privilege of working with you if you hadn't have done that, and it says a lot again about your character, about you're determined. Once you've set your eyes on something, you're determined to go and do it. So you've alluded to a couple of different challenges, and I think you've not explicitly saying it, just sort of alluded to it a lot, how you've overcome these challenges. And I think it's just unbelievable story to go from, amateur football, working in cricket, getting injured, teacher on a side, and now you're a full-time professional playing at one of the top clubs in England and in Europe, and competing at that level and pushing the standards of the team so high. So obviously, having a mixed sports background, you'd have worked with a lot of coaches, not necessarily S&C, more technical. Have you found that there's a particular coaching approach and style that suits you best?
Yeah. Well, as I say, I've had quite a few coaches in a variety of sports over my time, and I've actually had very different styles with regards to different teams I've played with as well. And for me personally, I like someone to be honest with me. That is the first thing that I like. But it depends on the type of training, depending on how I like it to be. So with regards to my football training, I like it to be quite militant. I like to know exactly what the coach wants me to do, and I'd like to be told, this is what I want you to do, this is how I want you to do it, and this is when I want you to do it. And that's how I like my football to be. But with regards to other stuff, so like S&C coaching, I like there to be a bit more freedom. And as I say, working with you, it's been absolutely amazing, just because we work together on things, and you ask me questions, and then you'll allow me to try things and do what I think is best for my body, but you won't let me do anything that's going to hinder performance or anything like that. So I like the fact that when it comes to things like gym work, because I've not really had much experience, there's a lot of teamwork within it between me and my coach, or me and you at the time. But at other clubs, obviously, I haven't had much. Being an amateur, I haven't had much S&C at all. So that was quite eye-opening. When I first came to Chelsea, I was like, oh my gosh, right, okay, this is a gym. What do I do in here? And I think over the last kind of 2.5 years working with yourself, it's been a massive learning process for me to learn about what I need and how I should work, and what works best for me with regards to getting the best performance out of me on the pitch. And as I say, I think that's worked so well with you, just because we bounce off each other and share ideas. And if I see something on social media or something and I think it might be good, I show it to you and you're like, yeah, go for it. But then other times you're like, okay, I think you probably might need to do this today. And I think it's quite nice to be really open with a coach. And I really like that kind of process, where we can discuss things, and if something isn't working or something doesn't feel quite right, then you're more than approachable for me to go up to and be like, actually, Joe, that exercise isn't quite right for me, or it's doing this, or it's not helping this. And I feel like that's kind of got me through the last 3 years, especially through my rehab process, when a lot of stuff is gym based in the first 3 months, so you're not allowed on the pitch. That 3 months was probably one of the toughest moments really of my sporting career so far. And having someone like yourself and the physio at the time, Aaron, was just such a help to be able to get me through that period and to teach me little tricks and ideas without actually saying, you've got to do this or you've got to do that. Because at that moment in time, that's not what I needed. I needed someone to just be able to have a chat to and just get through that period whilst getting the job done, but not being forced to do things I didn't really want to do, because in those times, obviously mentally it's quite difficult, because you're seeing the girls perform really well. We won the double that year and I played 7 minutes of that season, which was really quite heartbreaking. But I had the staff members on the side to get me through the training period that enabled me to come out the other side and hopefully now kick on and do what I need to do in my footballing career.
Yes, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you on certain things, and as you're aware, I've worked with quite a few female athletes with ACL injuries now, and I try to always take the approach of letting you feel and understand your body. I know what I want you to achieve and what I'd like you to be doing, and there are set things that we'd like to do along the way. There are many roads to Rome. Just because we need to get your strength up in your lower body doesn't mean we need to make you do lots of heavy back squats and things like that. Like for you, anatomically, it just doesn't work. There are other ways we can get nice strong legs, and decent landing mechanics and things like that. So it's nice to hear that comment, but again, it's really interesting to hear how you like to have different approaches depending on the scenario. So a lot of people think about coaching as one thing, and everyone likes to be coached in this way. It's really nice to hear that actually, no, when I'm on the grass, I want to be told, this is it, this is how you do it. Whereas when I'm in the gym, I want to be a part of the process. I want to be a part of developing and understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing. Obviously, some people aren't like that. Some people are always just, I just want to know black and white what it is and get it done. Others like to live in the grey sometimes, on the grass or whatever. So that's really cool. On that then, having that as a pretty big challenge over the last couple of years, did you look at it as a sort of cloud with a silver lining?
It's funny you say that, because obviously I've had conversations with you and with other people that have said to me that injury was a blessing in disguise for me and my career. And at the time, I obviously was like, don't be so stupid, because I want to play football. But looking back at it now, I've learnt so much and about myself, about my body, about who I am as a footballer, that I can see that silver lining, and I can see how it's created the player that I am today. And it's crazy to look back and think at the time, I thought that was it. I thought that was my professional career over. But yeah, it's turned me into a completely different player. I'm stronger, I'm quicker, I'm sharper than I've probably ever been, which again sounds crazy, but it's just down to the work that's been put in. And I think that period of time has now set me up for my career to be what I want it to be. And it's put me on a path to getting to the top of the game, potentially one day making an international squad. But looking back at it now, obviously nobody wants to get injured, but it has changed me, and I think it's changed me for the better, which is something I never thought would have happened at the time.
I don't think anyone likes to get injured, do they? No one, like even a little one. But one of the biggest challenges, I think, working as your SSC coach was not getting you to do stuff. It was getting you to do the right stuff sometimes, because obviously you didn't have a background in it. And you always tasked me with, I don't want to be slow. I want to be as quick as I was, if not quicker. Now, everyone knows working with ACL injuries that's a mammoth task, keeping someone fast. But, we've developed and added more muscle mass onto you over the portion of the 2 years, and you're hitting near enough bang on what you was hitting beforehand, which is an incredible feat, an incredible compliment to the amount of work you've put in and the dedication that you've shown to the actual process and the trust you've put in it, and just being there, doing it day in, day out, making sure you're getting all the extra work in the recovery type stuff, whether it's soft tissue acupuncture or whatever, whether they're doing their cups, whatever the crazy soft tissue physios like to do, but also making sure you're doing all of your foam rolling every day and your isometrics and things like that. Obviously, we've worked out, you and me working together, quite a few things that don't work for you. Certain, for instance, a back squat or the leg presses aggravates your tendon, things like that. Is there any advice you would give to a young female footballer or young footballer of any sex really, as to, what they should be doing when they're in the gym, trying things and making sure they're understanding what and why? Is there any advice you'd give to them?
Yeah, I think the best advice I would get is to have a good relationship with the person that they're working with. And that's just because that's if they have someone to work with. If they have someone to work with, then I think it's good to ask questions and to realize and find out why you're doing something. Because otherwise, if you're being told do a back squat and you don't really understand why, then the purpose behind it becomes very you don't really understand, and then you're like, well, why am I doing this? And I think that's the worst kind of thing that can happen with regards to rehab. If you don't understand why you're doing it, then it can become very autonomous and you don't really feel like you're doing it for any reason. Whereas I think if you have a good relationship with your coach or the person with you, then they won't ever mind you asking why you're doing something. And I think that was the main thing that got me through, is the fact that I had the people around me where I could be like, this is the worst exercise in the world, why am I doing it? And then you'd give me an answer and I'd be like, okay, well, if that's going to help this. And as you said before, like the speed aspect was one of the main things that made me the player I was before I got injured. So that used to play on my mind 24/7. Am I going to be as quick as I used to be? Am I going to do this? And I think the fact that you would then give me an explanation to the exercises that I'm doing that then led to my ability to get my speed back would give me a little bit extra enthusiasm into doing it, because I know there was a purpose for it and there was a reason behind how it was going to help me in my footballing career. And then if you're working on your own, I would say just make sure that you're doing everything safely, for one, and you're getting the exercises that you're doing from a professional or from some sort of way that you're not going to hinder your recovery or performance.
No, definitely not.
Because
no,
nobody wants that.
So with regards to everything you've been doing, learning and developing so far over what is a relatively short career, what are your aspirations?
And how do you want to take what you've learned so far forward to further develop yourself as a professional?
Well, I think for anyone that's in my position, obviously I made the leap from amateur to professional quite late, really. I was 23, but the dream is still to get an international cap. I missed out, obviously, when I was playing for cricket. I was played for the England Academy. I didn't quite make the step up because of my injury. And that was heartbreaking because I knew that that potential was there. So with regards to my football, my aspirations would obviously be to play for England one day. And I still think it's possible if I keep working hard. And how am I going to get there? I'm going to get there by just using the stuff really that I've learned over the last 2 years or 2.5 years, just to keep on top of everything I'm doing with regards to my training. Like, I think it's really important for myself that I don't overtrain, because sometimes I can get a bit eager, and then I just need to look after my body. And that's something that I've learned massively over the last 2.5 years, is that my body is what's gonna get me to where I want to be, and that's something that I need to look after. I need to make sure that I'm fit and I'm strong by using the different methods that I've been taught over the last period of time. So that's my how and why, I suppose, and that's what I want to achieve within my career. I want to play for England.
Well, no, you shouldn't be afraid. Everyone should want to, achieve their aspirations and, voice them as well. Otherwise, if you don't, how are people to know what you're trying to achieve and where you're aiming to go? It's never an easy task to do something like that, but if you're not willing to turn around and actually say it, then how is anyone else to know? And I think that's a really valid point for any young aspiring athlete, male, female, football, non-football, is that you should have a goal and you should be able to push yourself towards it and know what you want to do to achieve it. But also, don't keep the goal a secret. Like, let people know what you want to do, because at the end of the day, you're the only one that can do it. And if they wonder why you're doing the extra sessions, the extra running, the extra bits of like technical stuff, then you can say to them, well, this is why. I've told you I want to achieve this goal. This is what I'm doing. So that's really cool. It's good to know as well. You've always been, in my opinion, one of the hardest working, most self-critical players I've ever worked with, Dee. You really do put a lot of pressure, I think, on yourself, but that's because your standards are so high, I believe, and I think you want to go and achieve things. And it's been an absolute pleasure, first of all, to have worked with you over the last few years, and to have you on as a guest on the podcast. I have a huge amount of respect for what you've done and where you've come from, and hopefully people listening to this will understand a little bit about what you've achieved so far, and then also have an understanding of, to keep an eye out and watch what you're going to do, because you're going to go and do great things. You've already represented England at the academy level cricket, which is incredible. But I believe, given the right time and opportunity, you will be in a Lioness shirt without a doubt. And I can't see anything really stopping you, as long as you keep training smart as you do.
Thanks, Joe. You've been.
I know. I appreciate it. I feel you would have. I feel like I was just there, lucky enough to be working where I was working and helping out. And it's people forget when they're in positions like mine that you're very, very fortunate to be in a position representing the club, working with the players. For me, the best thing about working where I worked was with you guys was for was you guys. It really was. It was everything we did was for you. And I'm pretty sure you all knew and understood that. It was never about us as performance staff. It's not about our success. It's always about your success. And unfortunately, there are far too many people out there that justify their jobs all the time by overdoing it and doing too much. Sometimes less is more. But yeah. But thank you very much, Dee, for this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the future brings and what you do, where you go next and how it all pans out for you. Cheers, Dee.
No worries. Thank you, Joe, for having me on your podcast.
So just want to thank you again for listening to the episode. Subscribe, follow us on social media at CP Perform UK, and again sign up to our mailing list if you want to win one of the Player Smart Football Trackers. Thank you.